summer at last."
Someone else remarked merrily. Still Misha ignored him. He was now on to winter. "This winter the rejoicing peasant is seen again upon the sleigh. His pony also finds it pleasant to trot along the snow-clad way." Then things took a sudden turn, and winter was followed by autumn. "What a gloomy picture! Clouds and nothing more." At this, Paul began to whine loudly. Misha shouted, "Why so early autumn with your chilly blight?" The old woman who had slept through all this woke up nodding and said,
"Yes, dear, you are right. It's an early autumn this year."
She began to pat Misha's head. Misha kicked me, signaling me to continue. But all the poems I had ever known escaped me just then. All I could think of were the words of a song. A moment later, I was shouting the words out just as if this was another poem. Lena's father looked thunderstruck. "Oh no," he moaned, "another actor." Meanwhile, I went through the song twice. When I stopped, Misha came to my rescue. He began with great emphasis. "Serene is the Ukrainian night. The sky is clear. The stars are shining." More passengers got on at the next stop. "Well, well," one of them said, "there's a poetry recital on here." Meanwhile, Misha had reached the end of his poem. He kicked me again, as before. I couldn't seem to think of anything except a song, which I started reciting. "All the world around I travelled. Nowhere could I find my love." Lena laughed and said,
"All he knows is songs."
"It's not my fault. He recited all the poems I know," I said. The train was approaching the city. The passengers took down their bags. A noisy crowd filled the aisle. We grabbed our knapsack and suitcase and made our way towards the exit. There was not a sound from the suitcase. "Isn't something strange?" Misha said. "See how quiet he is when he can bark, and remember how he yelped when he should have been still. Let's have a look. Maybe he's suffocated." Misha set down the suitcase and opened it. We were dumbfounded. There was no puppy inside. Instead, there were some books and notebooks, a towel, a cake of soap, a pair of horn-rimmed eyeglasses, and a pair of knitting needles. We had got someone else's suitcase. We ran back to the train. It was empty. We ran through each compartment, looking under all seats. Paul was lost.
Chapter 2. Bakery Bear. What would you do if you saw a bear standing before you in your house? Would you try to shoo him away or run out of your house? The same thing happened to a woman in her bakery when a big bear entered her bakery. Let's read how the woman tackled this critical situation. Beban was busy baking a batch of chocolate muffins in the kitchen of Hot Muffins Bakery when the bell rang. "Be with you in a minute," Beban called, bustling around the kitchen. She thought it was a customer because every time someone entered the bakery, the bell rang. She put the chocolate muffins into the oven and bustled into the store. A big brown bear stood in front of the counter. Said the big brown bear. "Ah!" screamed Beban. Beban ran back to the kitchen, trembling in fright. She rang the local police station, and within no time, a policeman reached the bakery. Beban followed the policeman into the bakery. The bear was busy eating buns and coconut cookies. It looked at them and grunted bad-temperedly.
"Here, bear, nice bear,"
said the policeman nervously. The bear gave him a baleful look. The policeman backed away. The bear ambled towards him. He ran out, followed by Beban. "Oh, boy!" Beban babbled and fled from the store.
"I'd better call Mohan."
The policeman told Beban. Mohan was the local dog-cum-monkey catcher. He drove up in his big blue van and hopped out.
"Where's the bear?"
Mohan asked Beban. "It's in the bakery," Beban said. Mohan took a big net and went into the bakery. Beban heard a bang, grabbing a broom from the closet. Beban rushed into the store. Mohan was standing on a bench, waving his arms and yelling.
"Shoo!"
At the bear. The big bear was biting Barney's black boots hungrily. Beban beat the bear with the broom. "Back off, you big bully!" she shouted. When the bear bit the broom, Mohan jumped off the bench and ran out of the bakery. Beban followed. "What happened to your net?" asked Beban.
"The bear broke it,"
said Mohan. A wave of smoke came billowing out of the door of the bakery. "My chocolate muffins are burning!" cried Beban. She raced into the kitchen. "The bear is in the store," said Beban. "I have a plan." She sent the policeman to get some honey and had Mohan back his van behind the bakery. Meanwhile, she beat up a batch of buttermilk biscuits. Then she mixed honey into the batter. Soon the kitchen was bursting with the smell of honey buttermilk biscuits. The loud banging noises the bear was making in the bakery store ceased abruptly. As the bear smelled the honey, Beban carried the big batch of biscuits out to the van. Mohan opened the back door. The breeze blew the smell of the honey buttermilk biscuits into the bakery. The bear nudged open the swinging door of the bakery and ambled into the kitchen. He knocked over the big brown bowl and grumbled when he found no honey. Then the bear sniffed his way out of the back door. Beban had placed the basket of biscuits at the back of Mohan's van. The bear bounded up the ramp, and Mohan banged the door shut. Beban and the policeman cheered.
"I will take the bear back to the forest and let him out,"
said Mohan. Beban bustled up into the bakery to clean up. Chapter 3. If I Were a King. Have you ever wished to be a king? If you were the king for one day, what would you like to do? Who is your favorite king in history? Why? Let's recite this poem to find out what the poet would like to do if he were a king. I often wish I were a king, and then I could do anything. If only I were king of Spain, I'd take my hat off in the rain. If only I were king of France, I wouldn't brush my hair for ants. I think if I were king of Greece, I'd push things off the mantelpiece. If I were king of Norway, I'd ask an elephant to stay. If I were king of Babylon, I'd leave my button gloves undone. If I were king of Timbuktu, I'd think of lovely things to do. If I were king of anything, I'd tell the soldiers, I'm the king. Chapter 4. Rosa Parks. What is equality? Do you treat everyone, rich or poor, equally? Do you think everyone should be treated equally? Let's read about Rosa Parks, who devoted her whole life struggling for the civil rights. Rosa Parks is the woman known as the mother of the civil rights movement. She was a black woman born in 1913 in Alabama, USA. At that time, there were laws segregating black and white people. This meant that African Americans could only use facilities that were labeled colored only. Rosa grew up living with and taking care of her little brother, mother, and elderly grandparents. Her grandmother told her stories about slavery and segregation. Her mother also talked to her about the injustices that were taking place. In 1943, she became one of the first female members and secretary of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, on the historical day of December 1, 1955. Rosa Parks was tired and on her way home from a long day at work, with a bag full of groceries in her arms. She boarded the Cleveland Avenue bus. Soon, the white section of the bus filled up, and a white man boarded the bus and looked around for a seat. Noticing the white man, the bus driver yelled at 4 blacks, including Rosa, to get up. All of them but Parks obeyed. Parks was arrested. Since Parks was well respected by everyone in her community, her arrest sparked what is known today as the Montgomery bus boycott. Parks was found guilty at her trial in Montgomery, but it was appealed to the lower court. Parks' dream came true on June 2, 1956, when the lower court declared segregated seating on bus unconstitutional. On December 20, 1956, the Supreme Court upheld the lower court order that Montgomery buses must be integrated. By this time, the boycott had spread to many other cities. Parks' refusal to give up her seat on the bus marked a beginning for the civil rights movements of the 1950s and 1960s. Rosa Parks helped change the laws in America. Because of her actions, everyone in America has equal rights. She was honored in 1996 by President Bill Clinton, who gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest honor an American citizen can receive. Rosa Parks' story and accomplishments teach us that it is possible to make our dreams, no matter how unlikely they may seem, become a reality. Chapter 5. Jack's Little Sister. Do you have a younger brother or sister? Do you ever get irritated with him or her? Do you think it is your duty to look after your younger sibling? Let's read this story to find out how Jack felt when he lost his little sister in the park. Jack was 9 and Betty was 6. At home, they often played together, but when they went to the park, Jack wanted to play with the older children.
I don't want to take Betty,
he told his mother.
She's too little. She's a nuisance. I can't be bothered to look after her.
Don't be unkind, Jack, said his mother. Big brothers must always look after little sisters, just as mothers must look after children.
Well, I don't want to,
said Jack sulkily.
I'm playing with my friends today. I don't want to take Betty with me.
I'm not going to listen to you when you talk like that, said his mother. Anyone would think you don't love Betty, and yet I know you do. Now, don't let me hear another word. Take Betty and go. Jack went out sulkily, dragging poor Betty by the hand. Betty was sad. She was feeling unwanted. She did not want to bother her brother. I won't play with you and the boys, Jack. Really, I won't. I'll keep out of your way, she said to her brother.
You'd better,
said Jack roughly.
I'm not going to bother about you at all.
As soon as he saw his friends, he let go of Betty's hands and ran off with them. Betty went and sat down on a seat by herself. She felt very miserable. There were no little girls to play with, so she sat still and quiet, watching the boys play. Jack had a lovely game of cricket. He batted, bowled and fielded, and everyone shouted that he was jolly good. When he had made 50 runs, he really felt like a hero.
"You'll be playing for India one day,"
said the boys, and Jack felt great. The evening flew, and at last it was time to go home. He looked around for his sister. He had seen her on the seat over there. But she wasn't there any more. Then where was she? She wouldn't have gone home alone because she had faithfully promised Mother never to do that. She must be somewhere in the park. Jack hunted all over the park. He called and yelled. But Betty didn't come. Suppose somebody had kidnapped her. Jack's heart went quite cold when he thought of somebody kidnapping his little sister. Perhaps she had fallen into the pond and nobody had heard her calling. He rushed to it and looked anxiously in the water. No Betty there, thank goodness. Then where had she gone? He couldn't possibly go home without her. Whatever would Mother say? And Daddy would be simply furious.
"Betty, Betty, Betty, where are you?"
It was no use looking in the park any more. Betty must have left it. Oh dear, there were all those roads to cross. If she had tried to go home, she would surely be knocked down if she went by herself. Suppose she was even now lying in some hospital with a broken leg or a hurt head? Jack felt his eyes fill with tears. It would be all his fault because he hadn't taken care of her. He went homewards, stopping at each of the crossings to ask the passer-by the same questions.
"Please, have you seen a little girl wearing a red frock?"
He got all the way home without hearing a word of Betty. He was so upset and miserable that he began to cry as soon as he saw his mother.
"Mother, something happened to Betty. She's lost. She's been kidnapped or knocked down. Oh, Mother, I was so cross with her and I didn't take care of her. And now she's gone. I've come home without her."
"Poor Jack," said Mother. "How dreadful you must be feeling."
No, it's poor Betty,"
cried Jack.
"What shall I do? Oh, Mother, I'm so sorry I was unkind. I wish I could see her this very minute. I'd always take care of her, always."
Mother opened the door of the dining room, and Jack went in, sobbing. There, sitting at the table eating her dinner, was Betty, happy and cheerful. Jack rushed to her and hugged her.
"Betty, oh Betty, I'm so glad to see you. I thought you were lost and gone forever."
"One auntie came by and saw me sitting lonely," said Betty. "When she saw you were busy with the other boys, she took me to buy me an ice cream. Why are you crying, Jack?"
"I'll always take care of you, Betty,"
said Jack, so glad to see his little sister safe and sound that he could hardly stop hugging her.
"I'm your big brother, and you will always be safe with me."
Chapter 6. Similes. What are similes? How many similes do you know? Read the poem and spot the similes. Black as words on printed pages, sad like tigers locked in cages, long as thread unrolled from spools, straight like legs on wooden stools, quiet as a school at night, happy like a bird in flight, tight as fuzzy skin on peaches, white like dunes of sand on beaches, cold as scoops of frozen peas, fun like writing similes. Chapter 7. The Three Wishes. Do you help the needy and helpless people? Do you think God fulfills the wishes of people who help others? If you got 3 wishes, what would you wish for? Let's read this story to find out how God fulfills the wishes of people who help others. Raman Gupta was a very rich merchant. He lived in a magnificent house and had many servants. However, in spite of all his riches, he was very miserly and never gave to charity. He had a neighbor, Shishir Gupta. Shishir was quite poor, but he was very generous. Nobody went from his house, feeling disappointed. One day, Lord Vishnu decided to test the 2 neighbors. Disguised as a beggar, he presented himself in front of Raman's house first. When Raman saw the beggar, he shouted at once,
"Get away from here! Don't expect any help from me."
"Sir, I am very tired. Please give me a corner in your house to spend the night. I promise I will leave early in the morning."
"Do you think this is a dharamshala?"
snapped Raman.
"Go away at once, or I will have you thrown out."
So the beggar turned away and went to the house where Shishir lived. When Shishir saw the beggar enter his house, he went up to him at once. With a warm welcome, he invited him to his house, where he shared his food prepared for his own night meal. Thereafter, having made him comfortable for the night, Shishir went to sleep. In the morning, the beggar revealed his true identity and said,
"I am very pleased with your kindness. Ask me anything you desire, and I will grant your wish."
But Shishir was a very humble man and religious too. Greatly moved, he fell at Lord Vishnu's feet and said,
"Lord, let me be firm in my faith. I wish for nothing more than to be able to serve you to the best of my ability."
"So be it,"
said Lord Vishnu, and with that, he took his leave. Yet no sooner had he gone than Shishir's humble house changed into a beautiful mansion. When Raman saw Shishir's lovely house, he was filled with envy. Filled with regret too, when he heard the story of how it had happened. He was sorry that he had turned the beggar away. So, at once he set out, travelling the same road that the Lord beggar had taken, in the hope of meeting him. Luckily, he had not gone far when he saw the Lord standing near a tree. At once, Raman threw himself at Lord Vishnu's feet and said,
"O Lord, please do forgive me. I did not know it was you, else I would never have turned you away. But do come now, so that I can receive your blessings."
Of course, Lord Vishnu realized the reason for Raman's invitation, but he did not comment. He just smiled and said,
"Thank you for your invitation, but I am unable to accept it. However, I do grant you 3 wishes to make use of at any time."
Hearing this, Raman's joy knew no bounds. 3 wishes instead of 1. He thought happily. He would be better off than Shishir, no doubt. Having thanked the Lord, Raman now hurried home. On the way, he thought of all the lovely things he longed to possess, but could not decide on which ones he wanted the most. A bit irritated at his own decision, unthinkingly he snapped at a noisy cawing crow, which was disturbing his trend of thoughts.
"Silly crow, I wish you were dead."
To his surprise, he had hardly said these words when the crow fell dead at his feet.
"Oh, what a fool I am,"
realized Raman at once.
"I have lost one of my wishes. I must be careful from now on."
When he reached home, he went to his room and sat on his bed thinking of how he would utilize his other two wishes. He was in deep thought when a servant came to his room and said that the mistress wished to see him. Annoyed at being disturbed, Raman snapped at the servant.
Tell your mistress I cannot come. I am so deep in thought. I wish to stay glued to the bed.
The servant went and conveyed this message to his mistress. Concerned about her husband, Raman's wife went to his room to see what was wrong. Seeing her, he tried to get up so that he could explain everything to her. But to his horror, he couldn't get up, and then he realized his foolishness. He had gone and wasted another wish. He then narrated the whole story to his wife. Upon hearing the whole story, his wife began to scold him. "This is the result of your greed," she said. "So there is no use mourning about it. There is only one thing to do now. Use your last wish to get yourself unstuck from that bed."
But if I do so, I will gain nothing,
said Raman, feeling very upset. "Yes, and if you were to gain anything, of what use would it be if you were just glued to the bed for your whole life?" his wife pointed out angrily. Raman now saw the truth of what she had said. So he used his last wish to free himself from the bed. But with that he also learnt a lesson. From then on, he began to live a more meaningful life. He gave generously to the poor and was very kind and helpful to everyone. Lord Vishnu again thought of testing him. So after a couple of years, he knocked at Raman's door. This time he was in the guise of a traveller. The traveller said,
"My dear fellow, I have lost my way and need a place to spend the night. Will you take pity on me and give me shelter in a corner of your house?"
Raman replied,
"Yes, of course, my house is open to all."
He looked after the visitor well. In the morning, the visitor disclosed his identity. He asked Raman to wish for anything, but Raman said,
"I just wish for your blessings, my lord."
Chapter 8. The day Porus went to school. Do you have a good memory? Have you ever forgotten anything? Have you ever forgotten the day and got up early on a Sunday morning to go to school? Let's read this play and know how a boy left for school on a Sunday morning. The characters: Porus, a boy of about 10 years of age; Sandhya, his mother; Alok, his father; Bahadur, the colony watchman; Dadi, Porus's grandmother. Act 1. Setting: Porus's house. Porus, your father and I have to go to Nagpur for 2 days. Your father has to attend a conference there. You must be a good boy and not trouble your grandmother.
"Mom, I am always a good boy." "Yes, you are. But sometimes you forget things because of your playfulness."
Yes, do you remember the day you kept playing in school and missed your school bus? I had to rush from home to fetch you.
And that day when it was my birthday, and you instead thought it was your friend's father's birthday and wished him.
And the day you ate 2 breakfasts because you had forgotten that you had eaten the first.
And the time?
Okay. I know there have been a few times when...
Few or many?
Mom, Dad, I promise I will remember to pack my bag, eat my tiffin, do my homework and...
All right. Just make sure you keep your word.
Bye, Porus.
Bye, Mom and Dad.
Act 2. Setting: Porus's bedroom. The sun is peeping through the curtains. The alarm rings.
Time to get up. Thank God, I had set the alarm. Now I must get up and get ready for school. I promise Mom and Dad that I will not forget anything. Porus, you have an excellent memory. You remember to pack your bag, keep your school clothes ready, polish your shoes. Well done.
Porus springs out of bed and rushes about the room, getting ready. He looks at the clock.
Oh gosh, it's time to leave. Otherwise, I will miss the bus. No time for breakfast.
He clatters down the stairs and goes to his Dadi's room. His grandmother is still sleeping. He wakes her and says,
Daddy, you are very lazy this morning. Look at me. I'm already ready to leave for school.
Porus, but...
No, Daddy. I have no time for breakfast. You go back to sleep. I will have something to eat in school.
But...
Sorry, Daddy. No time for chit-chat. I will talk to you in the afternoon. Bye.
Porus, listen. But Porus has rushed out of the room. Act 3. Setting. Bus stop. Porus is waiting at the bus stop. He has a puzzled and surprised look on his face. The normal morning hustle-bustle is missing. A few morning walkers pass by. They in turn look surprised when they see Porus. A milkman is going on his cycle. He almost falls down when he sees the boy. Just then the colony guard comes.
Porus beta, what are you doing here?
Bahadur uncle, I am waiting for my school bus.
Beta, today is Sunday. Why are you going to school on a Sunday?
Sunday? Oh no! In my enthusiasm about not forgetting anything, I have remembered too much.
Porus walks back home. As soon as he reaches home, the phone rings. He picks up the phone. Porus, how are you? And how come you have got up so early on a Sunday morning?
Mom, you and Dad told me not to forget anything. In my anxiety not to forget, I am remembering too much.
He tells his mother the whole story. His mother starts laughing. Porus joins in. Then he goes back to sleep. Chapter 9. My Dog. Do you have a pet? If you don't have one, would you like to have one? If your parents allow you to keep a pet, which one would you keep and why? Let's read this poem to know how friendly our pets are with us. When I've fallen down and hurt my knee, my dog comes up to me. He sits close by and licks my hand. He always seems to understand. When I had done something naughty, and Mummy scolded me and said, I'm cross with you, go to bed. My dog came with me too, and that was a friendly thing to do. If I'm frightened in the night because I haven't any light, my dog is sure to creep beside my bed till I'm asleep. Chapter 10. Casablanca. Do you always obey your parents? Do you obey them happily? Would you like to know about a boy who sacrificed his life to obey his father? This is a story of young Casablanca, a boy about 13 years old, son of the captain of a ship. He remained at his post after the ship had taken fire and all men had abandoned the ship. There was a great battle at sea. One could hear nothing but the roar of cannon big guns. The air was filled with black smoke. The water was strewn with broken masts and pieces of timber, which the cannonballs had knocked from the ships. Many men had been killed, and many more had been wounded. The flagship had taken fire. The flames were breaking out from below. The deck was still ablaze. The men who were left alive made haste to launch a small boat. They leaped into it and rowed swiftly away to some other place, which was safer now than on board of that burning ship. There was gunpowder in the hold, but the captain's son, young Casablanca, still stood upon the deck. The flames were almost all around him now, but he would not stir from his post. His father had told him to stand there, and he had been taught always to obey. He trusted his father's word and believed that when the right time came, he would tell him to go. He saw the men leap into the boats. He heard them call to him to come. He shook his head.
"When father tells me, I will go,"
he said, and now the flames were leaping up the masts. The sails were all ablaze. The fire blew hot upon his cheek. It scorched his hair. It was before him, behind him, all around him.
"Oh, father,"
he cried,
"may I not go now? The men have all left the ship. Is it not time that we too should leave it?"
He did not know that his father was lying in the burning cabin below. A cannon ball had struck him dead. The boy listened to hear his answer.
"Speak louder, father.
He cried.
I cannot hear what you say."
Above the roaring of the flames, above the crashing of the falling spars, above the booming of the guns, he fancied that his father's voice came faintly to him through the scorching air.
"I am here, father. Speak once again."
He gasped. But what is that? A great flash of light fills the air. Clouds of smoke shoot quickly upward to the sky, and boom! Oh, what a terrible sound! Louder than thunder, louder than the roar of all the guns. The air quivers, the sea itself trembles. The sky is black. The blazing ship is seen no more. Chapter 11. A Story of Robin Hood. Is robbery a good act or bad? What if a robber robs the rich and gives it to the poor? Have you ever heard any story of Robin Hood? Do you know that even in modern times, we have many versions of Robin Hood? Let's read one of the interesting stories of Robin Hood, in which he helps a person marry a girl whom he loves very much. Robin Hood is a heroic outlaw in English folklore, a highly skilled archer and swordsman. He is known for robbing from the rich and giving to the poor, assisted by a group of fellow outlaws known as his merry men. In the days of King Richard and King John, there were many great woods in England. The most famous of these was Sherwood Forest, where the king often went to hunt deer. In this forest, there lived a band of daring men called outlaws. They had done something that was against the laws of the land, and had been forced to hide themselves in the woods to save their lives. There, they spent their time in roaming about among the trees, in hunting the king's deer, and in robbing rich travellers that came that way. There were nearly 100 of these outlaws, and their leader was a bold fellow called Robin Hood. They were dressed in suits of green and armed with bows and arrows, and sometimes they carried long wooden lances and broad swords, which they knew how to handle well. Whenever they had taken anything, it was brought and laid at the feet of Robin Hood, whom they called their king. He then divided it fairly among them, giving to each man his just share. Robin never allowed his men to harm anybody, but the rich men who lived in big houses and did no work. He was always kind to the poor, and he often sent help to them, and for that reason the common people looked upon him as their friend. Long after he was dead, men liked to talk about his deeds. Some praised him, and some blamed him. He was indeed a person who did not follow the law. This did not stop the poor from loving him. A great many songs were made up about Robin Hood, and these songs were sung in the cottages and huts all over the land for hundreds of years afterward. Here is a little story that is told in one of those songs. Robin Hood was standing one day under a green tree by the roadside. While he was listening to the birds among the leaves, he saw a young man passing by. This young man was dressed in a fine suit of bright red cloth, and as he tripped gaily along the road, he seemed to be as happy as the day.
"I will not trouble him,"
thought Robin Hood,
"for I think he is on his way to his wedding."
The next day Robin stood in the same place. He had not been there long when he saw the same young man coming down the road, but he did not seem so happy this time. He had left his scarlet coat at home, and at every step he sighed and groaned.
"Ah, the sad day, the sad day,"
he kept saying to himself. Then Robin Hood stepped out from under the tree and said,
"I say, young man, have you any money to spare for my merry men and me?"
"I have nothing at all,
said the young man.
but 5 shillings and a ring."
"A gold ring?"
asked Robin.
"Yes,
Said the young man.
it is a gold ring. Here it is."
"Ah, I see.
Said Robin.
It is a wedding ring."
"I have kept it these 7 years.
Said the young man.
I have kept it to give to my bride on our wedding day. We were going to be married yesterday, but her father has promised her to a rich old man whom she never saw, and now my heart is broken."
"What is your name?"
Asked Robin.
"My name is Alan Adale."
Said the young man.
"What will you give me, in gold or fee?"
Said Robin.
"If I help you win your bride again, in spite of the rich old man to whom she had been promised."
"I have no money,
Said Alan.
but I will promise to be your servant."
"How many miles is it to the place where the maiden lives?"
Asked Robin.
"It is not far,
Said Alan.
but she is to be married this very day, and the church is 5 miles away."
Then Robin quickly dressed himself as a harper, and in the afternoon he stood in the door of the church.
"Who are you?
Said the bishop.
And what are you doing here?" "I am a bold harper,
Said Robin.
the best in the north country." "I am glad you have come."
Said the bishop kindly.
"There is no music that I like so well as that of the harp. Come in and play for us." "I will go in,"
Said Robin Hood.
"but I will not give any music until I see the bride and bridegroom."
Just then an old man came in. He was dressed in rich clothing, but he was bent with age and was feeble and grey. By his side walked a fair young girl. Her cheeks were very pale, and her eyes were full of tears.
"This is no match.
Said Robin.
Let the bride choose for herself."
Then he put his horn to his lips and blew 3 times. The very next minute 24 men, all dressed in green and carrying long bows in their hands, came running across the fields. And as they marched into the church, all in a row, Alan Adale was right in front.
"Now, whom do you choose?"
Said Robin to the maiden. "I choose Alan Adale," she said, blushing.
"And Alan Adale you shall have,
Said Robin.
and he that takes you from Alan Adale shall find that he has Robin Hood to deal with."
And so the fair maiden and Alan Adale were married then and there, and the rich old man went home in great rage. This is why Robin Hood was so loved and feared. Chapter 12. Family Features. Who do you look like? Have you ever been told that you look like your father or grandmother? Let's read this interesting poem to know what the poet is saying. I've got my grandma's smile and Uncle Ramesh's toes. I've got Cousin Ela's hair and Mother's perky nose. There's a dimple in my cheek. I think it's Aunt Sheila's. And blinking in the mirror are Daddy's soft browns. But no matter how I try, I simply cannot see. If all those parts belong to them, then what belongs to me? Chapter 13. Denali Raman and the Two Thieves. Have you ever heard any of Denali Raman's stories? Do you know what he is famous for? What would you like to be famous for? Think. Denali Raman was a witty person. What does witty mean? Denali Ramakrishna or Ramalinga was a very famous Telugu poet and was a court poet of Sri Krishnadeva Raya, the famous Vijayanagara emperor. He is known for his wit and sense of humor. He was always successful in pleasing the king. It was the practice of King Sri Krishnadeva Raya to visit the jails once in a while and review the living standards of the convicts. During one of his visits, 2 of the jail inmates pleaded for cutting down their punishment period. The 2 had been sent to jail for stealing. They explained that theft was one of the 64 arts in the epics and Vedas. However, they argued that they would give up stealing and take up some other profession to make a living. The king thought for some time. Then he said,
I will set you free, but on one condition. You have to go to Denali Raman's house and steal. Make sure you do not deliver any physical harm to the household. If you are successful in stealing, you will be set free.
The same night, they were let out for robbing Raman's house. When the 2 reached his house, Raman was tending to his garden. Denali Raman spent much of his time in pleasing the king. Because of this, he reached home late in the evening every day. His wife would remind him about watering the fields. Every time he would say that he would reach home early next day, but invariably he came late. The 2 thieves hid behind a bush. Denali had, however, spotted them. He soon guessed they were thieves. He thought he should make use of these thieves in a proper way, instead of fighting with them.
Opportunities won't come always. Whenever an opportunity knocks at our door, we should make use of it.
He thought. He called his wife loudly.
My dear wife, the whole town is abuzz with the news that 2 thieves have escaped from jail. We should hide all our gold and other valuables, make a bundle and bring it here.
A few minutes later, Raman and his wife, with great effort, brought a heavy box into the backyard and dropped it into a well. Splash! For a few minutes, the sounds of a heavy weight dropping into the water in the well echoed. The 2 thieves looked at each other happily. They had not thought it would be so easy to rob Raman. Meanwhile, Denali and his wife had gone inside the house and locked the door. After some time, snores were heard from the bedroom of the house. Slowly the thieves came out from the bushes. They went to the well and peered into it. They decided that there was too much water in the well and some would have to be taken out. They started drawing buckets of water from the well. They would throw this water on the ground. The water started flowing towards Denali's fields. After drawing water for 3 to 4 hours, the thieves were tired. Both of them now slipped into the well and brought out the box with great difficulty. When they opened it, they saw to their dismay that it was not a box of jewelry. Instead, it was a box of rocks and pebbles. Raman called to them from his house. The startled thieves looked up. It was Raman standing there with his morning coffee and a mischievous smile.
Dear thieves, please take out some more water. 2 of my trees still need to be watered.
Both the thieves were stunned on hearing Denali Raman's voice.
Run! It is Ramalinga!
They said to each other and sped with all their might. They realized that they too had been fooled. Do you think they were set free? I think they went right back to the jail. Chapter 14. Kate Shelley Saves the Train. Have you ever heard any true stories about young boys or girls doing acts of bravery? Do you know what the opposite of brave is? Would you like to be called brave or coward? Let's read the story of a brave girl who saved the life of train passengers, putting her own life in danger. One night, many years back, a fierce storm broke over the Des Moines River Valley. The storm raged through the night, flooding the river and the nearby creeks. Around 11 p.m., a pusher train was sent to search for any washout along the track. After it passed the home of the Shelley family, a railroad widow raising 5 children. The family heard a terrible crashing sound. The bridge over the Honey Creek had collapsed, taking the pusher train with it. The eldest daughter, 15 years old, Kate Shelley, ran out into the storm to investigate. She saw 2 of the 4 men trapped in the water, but she could not reach them. Kate realized that she could not rescue the men by herself. She also realized that a midnight express train was due to pass over the Honey Creek Bridge, possibly sending more people to their death, if she did not warn the nearby Mongona station of the washout. "Mom, I have to go to the Mongona station to warn them of the bridge collapse," Kate said. Her mother was silent. She knew she could not stop Kate. Many lives would be lost if she did so. She also knew she could not go with Kate, leaving the 4 children, the youngest only 9 months old. She kissed her daughter and sent her with the words, "God be with you." Kate knew there was a nearby trestle bridge with a tiny catwalk over the flooded Des Moines River. So amid the darkness and the storm, Kate crawled on hands and knees across the catwalk. Halfway across, a tree came crashing into the center of the trestle bridge. Kate was sure the tree would break the rickety bridge apart, throwing her into the flood waters below. But at the last moment, the tree slipped between the piers, splashing water all over Kate. As soon as Kate had steadied herself, she again started crawling. It was pitch dark, and she could not see anything. "God, please help me," prayed Kate. Miraculously, the clouds parted, and the moonlight peeped through. Kate could make out the way ahead. Crawling through painstakingly, Kate reached the other side of the river. She ran towards Mongona station, trying to beat the clock. She burst into the station, wild-eyed, and warned the station agent of the washout. The station agent ran out into the storm with a red lamp to halt the express, whose headlight was bearing down upon the station. The train halted. Doors opened and passengers came out to find out why the train had stopped. When they came to know the reason, they all wanted to meet Kate. A shy and tired Kate was mobbed by the passengers. The driver called her
a true soldier.
As soon as the express train was safe, Kate led a rescue train to where the 2 men from the pusher train were clinging on for their lives. The 2 men were saved as well. Kate was felicitated for her bravery. She received an award from the President of America. Her school named a building after her. And her mother? She broke down when she saw Kate. She had not allowed herself to cry when her daughter was leaving, but on seeing her daughter safe, she cried. Later she said, "My tears were tears of happiness, relief, and pride."